Okay, so we are here at Cloudflare. We just participated in a hackathon. It was pretty amazing. A lot of people, a lot of interesting conversations. And we met here Damien Murphy from Deepgram, the company that provides SDK for voice. Maybe you will tell us more a little bit about that in a moment.
And one of the sponsors.
And one of the sponsors. So Damien helped us a lot during our struggle with building the app. But before we start, we wanted to ask you, how did you start with AI and programming? What was the path that you brought you here?
I started programming probably back on a BBC computer.
Oh, wow.
So my father had a little side hustle where he'd work on computers. So started out on a terminal basically.
Okay.
And then from there over the years, just kind of learned more and more. Went to university. Did a lot of different things, and emigrated here about 10 years ago from Ireland, and I was working with SAP at the time.
Okay.
So large multinational, and just really wanted to get into the startup space. Left SAP, joined another startup in the mobile CI/CD space, and after that, ChatGPT came out, and it's okay.
It's got to dive in.
Gotta change. Right? You either adapt or die, I think, when it comes to AI. So. Definitely wanted to hop onto that wave.
So was Deepgram the first
first AI company? Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And
so maybe you could tell a few words about what Deepgram is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Deepgram's a speech to text and text to speech AI company. So we build our own foundational models and we run our own infrastructure in our own data centers. So we're vertically integrated, right? We basically, we don't give away our revenue, and we keep it to ourselves. And we reinvested in research. And because of that, we've actually been around since 2015, long before ChatGPT came out. But ever since ChatGPT came out, a lot of people realized they had a treasure trove of information stored in audio that they didn't really have a way to leverage, right? And now you can actually unlock that audio data, turn it into text, and then take that text and turn it into insights and intents and sentiment and all these different kind of value things.
When you think about the voice and like transcribing or changing from text to speech or speech to text, it seems very easy. But you at Deepgram, you are doing much more than that, right? For example, we discovered just today that you are doing sentiment analysis. What else is there in Deepgram API?
Yeah, so we do sentiment analysis, intent recognition, entity detection, topic detection, summarization. And like with all of that, you can actually build up a very clear picture about what a phone call is about, right? And one of our key use cases is analyzing phone call data, right? So when you make a phone call and it says, this may be recorded for training and quality purposes, that allows them to actually run analysis and say, okay, which of my 10 million calls this year do I need to actually look at, right? What are the good ones? Why were they good? What are the bad ones? Why were they bad, right? Nobody can listen to all of those calls, but AI now can actually get that information. And what we're seeing a big growth in right now is AI voice bots, right? So you can think of traffic patterns into call centers that come in waves, right? So imagine you're a large service provider and you have an outage. You're going to get a sudden massive spike that you just can't answer the phone for. So the ability to scale up with AI and take that sudden demand, it's really useful.
It gives you competitive edge, right? In a way.
Yeah, definitely, and it does good, right? Because you can have 911 issues, right? Like imagine there's a natural disaster. Suddenly, all the phone lines are nobody can get through. You can't collect anybody's information, and it may be too late by the time they do get through to actually save their life, right? So being able to have an AI that's always on, always able to answer that phone can be the difference between life and death. And
you're doing something very interesting because when we were preparing for the hackathon, we were just skimming through the docs, and then we discovered, you told us about that. So for example, you can create with Deepgram this a system or let's say a process where you can interrupt, right? And you can really you can detect when a person stops talking. And could you elaborate on that, how it works? And
yeah. So the inference engine for real time, it's actually processing the audio extremely fast, right? So you're taking slices of the audio, right? And you may take 5 slices of a single word. And that allows us to bring the latency down of detecting words, right? So now you're getting very fast words, but we also want to increase the accuracy. So while the person is speaking, you're increasing accuracy the more you learn, right? So like you mightn't have very good accuracy on a single word, but as you get a sentence, right, now you can actually really solidify that. So over time, what we're doing is we're basically getting you the best transcript and then locking that away and saying, okay, that's finalized. Next bit, right? And then as soon as you stop speaking, we'll detect that silence and we'll say, okay, we're not going to receive any additional context. So let's take what we have right now, finalize that, and then that gives you that super low latency, high accuracy transfer.
Yeah, and this has been tremendously useful for us today.
Yeah, because we are trying to do it in the browser API, and it's a struggle. There's a lot of let's say,
nuances,
mathematics involved, and Deepgram is doing that for us, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was impressed how fast it is. The latency
is
pretty amazing.
Because before we tried the REST APIs when you sent pre-recorded tracks, and here we could use the WebSockets connection, send it real time, and it was really, really fast.
So I was wondering, because if we talk about the future of AI, with Deepgram, you can, for example, imagine those interfaces where, like a fluid interfaces, where you can talk the way you talk to a human, right? Because Deepgram allows for that, because of the low latency and generally of all those features you mentioned. How do you see the future of AI? Do you think it's like a good thing or a bad thing, or we will see?
I think AI is going to bring a lot of good, but at the same time, people can use that for bad, right? So, one of the big things that we do is responsible AI and making sure that, when we do release, say, voice cloning, that we put in place, watermarking, we put in place, terms and conditions that don't allow it to be used for nefarious uses. And really just making sure that, the system we have in place to clone a voice prevents people from cloning other people's voices, right? And you can do that with various things like, in order for you to clone a voice, you're going to have to read out this number and this alphanumerics, right? And we can then verify whether you actually said that, right? So it's very hard to get somebody else's voices to say 659 ABF, right? And that gives you then that voice kind of proof that this person was present when the voice was actually being cloned. But getting back to the low latency AI stuff. It's actually really powerful in a lot of different ways, right? So you can offload a massive amount of kind of monotonous work, right? If you think of like outbound sales calling, right? You have people that basically are making phone calls,
repeat the same thing,
no answer, right?
Okay.
Make a phone call, get a voicemail. Make a phone call, somebody answers. Oh, amazing, somebody answers. Would you like to burp, 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 right? So how much time do you think people want to spend doing that, right? Very little. So there's companies we work with that basically automate that process. Now, they don't speak to the customer on the other end, but what they do is they're able to figure out when somebody answers using AI, and then that person that actually wants to talk to somebody, right, because that's their job, now they get to talk to somebody, right? They don't have to go through that pain of constant hang-ups and
so it really optimizes the flow, right?
Yeah, and it's a productivity boost, right?
And makes the work more satisfying for them as well, right?
Yeah, it could be a 70x increase in productivity on outbound sales, and then with customer success.
I wanted to ask you, because you focus on Deepgram and voice AI, let's say, but do you see any other interesting, or what's outside of that, this little bubble in AI? What interesting projects have you seen? And
I think AI agents, right?
Okay.
I think that's going to be the future, right? Because we have right now a very powerful AI system using transformers, and we'll probably iterate on that and have better ones. But they're very good at a specific thing that you get it to do, right? So you could have an agent that's like a returns agent, another agent that's a cancellation agent, another agent that's like an upsell agent, complaint agent, right? You can have an agent for nearly every single use case.
Like a pipeline of agents.
Yeah. And then at the front of that is instead of this menu, press 1 for this, press 2 for this, right? Because essentially that's like a decision tree, right? You can have that routing agent be completely seamless, just like, hey, how can I help you today? And you just speak, you just say what your problem is. Oh, my internet's really terrible, I need some technical support. Oh, of course, I can help you with that, right? So none of this on hold, waiting and moving. you can swap agents out really easily. And that's just if it's like inbound calling, right? Now imagine what you can do with autonomous agents, when you apply them to other use cases. Like there is a law that prevents you from like cold calling people with AI, but you can call your customers, right? So imagine I'm a large soda manufacturer and I want to call up all of my stores and ask them how many cases of some soda do you want, right? That's a very manual task. So you can automate that, like, order taking across your entire customer base, and it's probably going to be a lot easier, right? You can get through much more people much quicker. That means they get their product quicker, right? So all the turnaround times really improve.
And do you see that as a part of Deepgram, or rather like a layer on top for other startups to build on top of Deepgram?
So we're a foundational AI company, right? We provide you with the models and we provide you with the API. And a lot of our customers, a lot of our largest customers are resellers, right? So they sell transcription to their customers, right? But they sell other things as well, right? They sell business value on top of it, right? So, like you look at that use case with the podcast, right? Imagine if he started selling, transcription podcast services to his customers, right? So it allows us to provide, very highly scalable API, but not have to worry about building, complex business products for every different use case.
And the interface, yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm wondering if we, because we are trying to target different audiences and different levels of like advanced and beginners, I'm wondering if you could have an advice to people who are just getting started in programming. What do you think? Should they still like learn what we've learned when we started, or should they take totally different path?
Yeah, do it differently.
Yeah.
Right now.
I think there's value in understanding the basics, right? Like, you can't do complex mathematics unless you can add, divide, subtract, right? So I think there's definitely basic steps, right? For loops, things like that. If you understand fundamentally programming, that will make you a better user of AI, right? Because now you can understand the limitations of the language that the AI is going to write. But I don't know if it makes sense for people to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars going to the best school to learn to program Java or Python, when it'll probably be relatively obsolete pretty soon. Like the programming language has always tried to err towards natural language, right? So like for loops are for because they want it to be natural language, right? Like there's no other reason for it to be for, only because that sounds familiar, right? But under the hood, it goes down to assembly and then the binary, and and now you're running like all this kind of stuff. So like the ultimate evolution is just natural language. And I think if you can be very good at controlling an AI to achieve your goals, that can get you probably like 80% of the way. But you're still going to have to go in there and tweak things, because like trying to get an AI to modify a single character is kind of a waste of money, right? If you know that you want the text 1 pixel bigger, do you really want to prompt an AI every time? Like, so
too much trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, for this inspiring interview. We learned a lot, and
great
we will put the links to Deepgram, and you shared with us very interesting repositories.
With the demos
happy to share
and examples.
There's a lot of things to do. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.